All right, everybody, welcome. This is two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff. And you are joining us for our 11th episode, which is good fun. So we hope that you are thinking in terms of finishing this week with some cool ideas, some fun sharing them, and having those things be actually meaningfully, professionally valuable to you, right? And so that is always our goal, is to kind of hit both pedagogical value and, oh my God, this week's been a week kind of approach, making sure everybody's in a good space. So some thank yous are going to go out. First of all, thank you to all of you who are joining us. That's important to us to be able to just be able to share ideas that are useful to you. Thank you for everybody who has sent questions over the last week. We got some good questions we're ready to jump into, things like that. This week in particular, I want to take time to thank you for being an educator. This is a time when it is all the more important that those of us who work with kids are doing every last thing we can to help them see a better future. It is important that they have the confidence that they can bring their talents and their energies to make a better society, a more just society, and I appreciate that you are part of the team making that happen. So I hope that what we learned today will point in those directions, and that we are always oriented to making life better for every last one of our students. So with that, let's keep going. Thank you to all of the Merit 20 crowd that might be out there. Good having people from the Krause Center for Innovation, amazing place in Los Altos Hills, California, helping to help inspire educators to see new possibilities, what they do in classrooms, and connect with teachers around the world. And we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves. So we'll start with Richard. Richard, talk to us.
Hi, I'm Richard. You know me probably from freetechforteachers.com or practicaledtech.com. I'm a dad to two little girls, 3-year-old and 2-year-old, who are outside playing in their little kiddie pool right now while I do this. Don't worry, somebody is watching them. And the dog is also supervising. And I love to get questions from everyone. It inspires me to get even more creative and dig for solutions. And so, 15,000 blog posts later, and I'm still going because of great questions from people like you.
Awesome. And there's already a cool question in the chat from Patricia. We will get to that for sure. Love that the dog is helping supervise your daughters. My wife and I actually have 2 daughters, but that's 8 legs as they're felines, and that's just kind of the way it is for us. Lola and Luna, and they're awesome. All right. I am a former high school teacher, spent some time teaching middle school, actually, video production class, 1 year, didn't quit, right? And then I became a principal. I was principal of a K-12 school and a principal of an online high school, and now I run this, nextvista.org. It's an online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content, my own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Ding. All right, so with that, we want to start jumping into what you're going to find. And so on the site, you're going to find like all of these cool things about academic topics and communities and service and careers and English language. And if you're interested in any of that, especially if it means getting you or your students to make videos that we can highlight and share with others, please let me know. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start with a couple of cool shares because we like sharing cool stuff. And then we will jump into questions that we've had over the course of the week, which hopefully will include questions that you might toss in as a part of the chat, because in joining us live, you get to do that. And after we stop the recording, we'll keep talking with you. So much fun. So we hope you will all be excited about what we have to share, starting with this. Richard, tell us about the Acoustic Atlas.
So the Acoustic Atlas is a project from Montana State University's library, and it's hosted on ArcGIS's Story Maps platform. Everyone's familiar with Google Maps and some of the stuff you can do with Google Maps at school. ArcGIS Story Maps is a really cool combination of pictures, mapping, and now audio. And as you scroll through this particular one goes through sounds of ecosystems of Montana and the greater Montana area. Really, really cool way to kind of learn about ecosystems. It's also kind of a neat thing to inspire a lot of curiosity from kids. Rushton, as you scroll down, you'll see that there's some embedded audio files in there, so you can play on demand, like wolves howling, and really just some really cool stuff to kind of inspire kids to, ask questions about what's out there, right? Like, what do things really sound like? I always love that. Like, when you and I were in school, if we wanted to hear what a wolf sounded like with a picture, it meant we got the film strip out and you hoped that whoever ran the film strip synced it up to the tape correctly or the record correctly, right? Now we have these really cool things. I was torn on this one. I also wanted to include a different one called the Audubon Bird Guide app. So I'm going to include a second one that I didn't put in the slides. But the Audubon Bird Guide app is really cool because you can listen to all the sounds of birds that they have archived. There's like 700 of them. And you can go and listen to them. And you can like kind of see, oh, I found a bird. I don't know what it's called. And find a match. And then it'll help you narrow it down. Both are really cool ways to inspire curiosity with kids.
Do you mean you can like test it via the audio? You can search via audio what it is?
No, you can't search via audio. But
that would be crazy. Yeah.
But what you can do is you can say, for example, and I do this with my daughters because we have all these bird feeders around our house and all kinds of birds. And I can only recognize like a robin and a sparrow. And that's about it. And my daughter's like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. So you can go to the app, hit identify bird. It'll ask you, I don't know if you can see that. What size is the bird you're looking at? What color is the bird you're looking at? What was it doing? And it will kind of narrow it down based on your selections.
That is cool.
Then you can play the audio back.
Find a site for that and toss it into the chat. Let's make sure that will be in the links, because as you know, if you are a veteran watcher of Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff, that after we finish processing the recording, I send you an email individually, right? That says, here's the recording, here are the slides, here are all the links that we talked about, all for free. Man, what a deal that is. So definitely give that a look. All right, for me, I picked out OK Go Sandbox. Now, if you like music videos, and if you are anywhere near, say, Richard and my age, you remember the early days of music videos and the Buggles and all this kind of thing. But I would venture to say, my opinion only, that the medium kind of grew a little stale, kind of in the, let's just say, the 90s or so. Not much happening. And then at some point in the O's of the early teens or something, this band shows up, OK Go. OK Go is crazy interesting. Their videos are off the charts interesting. Now, what I didn't know until fairly recently is that they have a site called the OK Go Sandbox. And the whole idea with the sandbox is to be able to use these really, really interesting videos as a prompt. So like, here's one that's kind of all about zero gravity that they're doing all these kind of funny things in. They've got these ones that are all about, like this kind of Rube Goldberg-ish devices, things like that. Things that have to do with audio with those. This one, the writing on the wall, just tons and tons of really cool optical illusions. And if you click on View Lessons, what it does is it takes you in. You can watch the video, which is huge fun to watch, but then take a look. See, so you've got these things with illusions, cube, blah, 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 grade K to 12, grade 3, 5, in this case, grade 9 and 12. Middle school is like, what about us over here on illusions? Ah, good. So, you click on these things and it gets over there and you've got some PDFs you can download. There's some videos where they're discussing these things. Really good fun. If you were not an OK Go fan before, my prediction is by the end of the weekend, you will have seen like God knows how many OK Go videos, because they are so much fun to watch. Crazy, crazy cool are these. And I hope that is something that that inspires you to come up with some really cool things for what you do with students, maybe even over the summer, perhaps, if you're still in touch with your group from the spring, you just do kind of these, like say the semester's over. And for those of you who it's not, sorry. All right. But let's just say it is. And if so, maybe you're doing this thing where you post assignments that are just like these crazy cool little things. Remember that, we talk about like the summer slide, right? Summer slide, they forget everything during the summer. The reason they forget everything during the summer is because we don't keep talking to them, and it goes off their radar for 3 months. And if it's just kind of like on their radar even a bit, it'll help in a big way. Once you get up to August, if you can get like the contact info for all your kids, chances are fairly good you're going to be teaching online anyway, just saying. That what you can do at that point is start putting out some cool stuff like this, so that they're kind of in that space of like, oh, okay, wow, this teacher's you're kind of showing us some cool stuff. It just establishes kind of a cool rapport on your way into the semester. So there you go. All right, so time to do some of these questions. I want to stop sharing the screen. We'll come back to it as often as we need. But Richard is our man with the question doc, and so start us off. What's the first one we're going to take a look at today?
First one is from Lisa, who's in a graduate course where they have to do a Pecha Kucha presentation. Pecha presentation.
Pecha Kucha.
I knew that.
Good man.
It won't be live, and we're doing it as a group, so we can record separately. My question is, do you know how to record on Google Slides? I know how to change the slides to 20 seconds each, but is there a way that you know of to record on each slide so the three of us can do our own recordings remotely? So I had two solutions to this. My first one was to record your it's only 20 seconds. So record your 20 seconds of audio using a free tool like Vocaroo or online voice recorder, download that, then upload it to Google Drive and insert it into your Google Slides. That's one option. The other option, if you want to do all three of them together, or you want to, take a few cracks at it before you submit your final work, do it in Zoom and just record the Zoom. What do you think, Rushton?
So well, I think the Zoom suggestion is great because Zoom's recording tool is just really strong, right? But I want to talk about the idea in general because I think at least I think it's really cool that you're getting to do this. I think that's a cool assignment. Now, for those of you who are like, what are you guys talking about? Pecha Kucha, what? So let me just kind of walk you through some pieces here. Imagine you give an assignment, and kids, what they're doing is they're getting up and they're going through some slides and they're presenting to the class, and then that kid sits down, the next kid says something. That tends to be a fairly brutal experience for absolutely everybody, doesn't it? It does. But there's a reason why, right? And that's because no one's thinking about this as an opportunity to do something cool. What they're doing is it's a hazing ritual. Everybody has to go through it. And so if you haven't gone through it yet, you're not listening to the person speaking because you're thinking about your own. If you have gone through it, you're just happy you're done and you're just kind of mildly listening. Chances are good that you're also trying not to be bored because the kid up front is just reading off the slides, which is painful like few things are. So what if you change that and you said, all right, here, you've got 20 slides, 20 seconds each. That's the traditional Pecha Kucha, but it could be anything. Six slides, 10 seconds each, 1 minute. And you run them through and no one's seen the slides. Now it's kind of an ad lib thing. So all they know is they're supposed to include something you've been studying recently, So it could be, haiku poetry. It could be the Doppler effect. It could be anything, but you just gotta work it in with the slides. So there's no pressure to be ready, right? Because you don't know what's coming. Now you might say, wait a minute, how does that become like this really useful experience for the kids? Well, for one, now everybody's paying attention because, it's kind of an ad lib thing. The second is people are acting creatively. And so some, people are going to come up with stuff that makes the other kids go, that was awesome, right? Which is actually a really good kind of opportunity for kids. Now, so there's that kind of Pecha Kucha, which is really about an ad lib experience. But you can also think about it in terms of preparing. And Richard spoke to this just a minute ago. Don't just do it the first time when you're recording, you send it in. I've done it. That's just checking off a box education. It's not inspiring anybody. If instead what you do is you look at it and you say, okay, well, what can I add? So I'm going to record it, see how it sounds, get better at it. You're always kind of in that mode of how do I get better? And consequently, you can start looking at things like, how do I add something cool to this? And maybe what you do is you work with others and you get in that space of saying, how do we add cool things to this? And then suddenly people are setting the bar for each other. And now you got an interesting set of things to talk about. And that's some really good fun and cool education going on there. My 2 bits on Pecha Kucha. Richard, keep us going.
Well, I just added 2 things in the Pecha Kucha. Number one, there's a site called pechaflickr.net where it randomly generates pictures and you get 20 seconds to talk about them. And that came from Alan Levine from Cogdog Blog. And I also linked in a blog post that he wrote about it back in 2014 or so. I think he wrote it. So anyway, there's a couple additional resources on that topic. All right. Next question came from Jen and about a half dozen other people this week. It was, for whatever reason, it was a very popular question. I really like the oval shape that you're using in your screencast videos. How are you able to make that happen? Rushton, you want to screen share so people can see what we're talking about?
There it is.
There it is. Oh, thank goodness I'm wearing a different shirt than I am in that picture. So that oval shape is something I started doing in Screencast-O-Matic, and I started doing it, truth be known, to crop out some stuff that was hanging on my wall up here behind me. But people like it for whatever reason. People like the oval as opposed to the square at the start of my screencast videos. I did that in Screencast-O-Matic. I have the deluxe version of Screencast-O-Matic, which costs $1.65 a month, less than a cup of coffee. So well worth the money for me. If the $1.65 a month is not your cup of coffee, you can do an struggling there. You can do a circle shape with Loom. Go to loom.com. Loom's screen recording tool puts your face in a circle as opposed to an oval. Screencast-O-Matic lets you do all kinds of different shapes. You can crop it in all kinds of weird ways. The Loom is free. Circle.
Very cool. Go ahead and stick the Screencast-O-Matic and Loom links into the chat as well. We'll get those available to people. While we're doing that, I want to speak to the fact that he got like a bunch of questions about an oval shape. Right? So you might say like, well, why is that important? It's important because when we present to students, when we are doing our thing as teachers and we're presenting to students, any little thing that we change becomes the kind of thing that captures their attention. Now, obviously this can go off the rails, but on the other hand, what we want is to capture attention, because you can't teach them anything if you don't get their attention. I mean, teaching 101. So consequently, if you are looking for little things to add, that can make a difference as well. So maybe you're making a video for people, and maybe you're using, iMovie or something like this, right? And you have the ability to say, record it this way. All right, guys, I'm going to tell you now about what's it going to be? It's going to be about photosynthesis, and we're going to talk about this. Pause. All right, and then you grab like a flower or a leaf or something like this, hold it, unpause. See, I'm talking about a leaf. Pause. Now what you're going to, this is very easy to do in terms of editing, but you end up with this kind of TikTok-ish style video or whatever that the kids are like, that's crazy fun. It's not hard, but you just have to think in terms of, I want to do it a little differently. And what you do is, you finish the video and they're responding, whether it's online, in person, like, wow, that was a fun video. What did I tell you about? So you've got their energy going. You can make your points in a way that it's more valuable. We're essentially trying to make each minute we teach more effective. And the more they're engaged, the better. So thoughts there.
And I just put in the chat there a link to a class that our friend Tony Vincent teaches called Classy Videos. He's currently not teaching the class, and I don't know if he's going to offer it again, but I put the link in there anyway. Tony is a great guy for anything to do with enhancing the visuals of pretty much anything you're going to do in your classroom. Tony and I did some workshops together years ago. And I used to say to people, you can tell the parts Tony did and the parts that I did in the outline, because he would have this great font choice and I would have Times New Roman 12 point. So check out Tony's work. Anyway, next question.
Yeah.
What's that?
You've clearly learned from the man.
I've tried.
Good man.
Tried a little bit. So next question came from Jeff, and it's on a related note. Do you have suggestions for adding text bubbles and directional arrows to screencast videos? I think that could really help some of my students follow along with my instruction a bit better. So again, Screencast-O-Matic is the tool that I use, where you can overlay arrows and little call outs in there, put in some text bubbles or speech bubbles. You can do that. But you can also use iMovie or WeVideo. Both of those have functions for overlaying a call out or overlaying a directional arrow. Directional arrow. I don't know why I'm trouble saying that. Directional arrow, where you can say, "Hey kids, click here. Look at this." That sort of stuff.
I would say, adding to that, that you can really do some cool things with videos using Edpuzzle, right? So if you want the video to stop and your voice appears, well, you're paying attention to the last part. He mentioned this. I hope you pay attention. If not, rewind, and then boom, it goes on with the video, which is an interesting thing to have happen when you're watching a video, right? Again, capture their attention. Make sure that you're orienting them to the things you want them to, to focus on. Those kinds of things are not hard, but you just go to the trouble of doing it, and it makes a difference. So we'll get that in the links as well. So Edpuzzle is a way to annotate online video, essentially. Lots of cool things you can do with that.
Yeah. All right. Next question is one that I get pretty often throughout the course of my life. And that is about how to organize all your resources. This came from Joanna, who said, my question is, I have a hard time keeping track of new resources and websites. I would like to know if you have a strategy or a hub where I can keep all the good information I come across for future reference and use. I normally bookmark the page, but this has been ineffective. So, a little secret. This is kind of why I started blogging. It helped me think about and organize the stuff that I was finding. Now, 15,000 blog posts later, it's kind of a hot mess at this point. But that is really why I started. That's one of the two main motivations in my start in blogging was keeping track of all that stuff and just thinking about it. And so what I do now to actually try to keep track of things I find as I'm scrolling through the internet, right? I use Google Keep. And with Google Keep, I apply labels to every note. Now, the trick of that is you have to remember what labels you're using, right? So, but I use Google Keep. I have used OneNote at times. OneNote notebooks could pretty much do the same thing, but since I'm kind of married to the Google ecosystem, I tend to use Google Keep. Prior to all that, probably before Google Keep and before OneNote notebooks came along, I used Digo, which still exists. And there are some features of Digo that I still like and wish were added to Google Keep. One of them being the ability to share groups of notes or groups of bookmarks. I used to do a project with Digo back in 2008, 2009. So we're going back 12 years, 11, 12 years now, where I would tell all of my students, I was teaching U.S. history at the time, we get to the Civil War, and I'd give them an assignment on writing about a cause of the Civil War or a contribution, a turning point in the American Civil War. And I knew from having done it for a few years exactly which websites kids were going to come up with. And I did not want to see 120 kids citing the same sites over and over again. So what I did back when I had a Digo account is I would tell the students, you all need to put 2 links into this Digo group about the American Civil War. But it cannot be a link that someone else has already added. Which meant the kids who procrastinated had a harder time than the kids who did the project right away. So,
very nice.
To get back to Joanne's question, Google Keep.
Keep is a great tool, and it's one of those things where a lot of people have no idea how many different things you can do in Keep. You can take pictures, and it does like a character recognition, and stuff like that. I mean, it's just there's so many things you can do in Keep. It's fantastic. I'll also do a quick plug for my little site. This needs a bit of an update, but I organize things this way, and so digital media, collaboration, search and research, subject specific. But I have one down here called Sources of Inspiration, and especially if you are just kind of completely exhausted from the last 3 months and the events of the last 2 weeks and everything. Come here, right? Because what happens is you can find all these videos that are really quite useful for just reminding you about kind of the basic goodness in people and the opportunities that are part of great learning and things like that. So I will get that in the chat as well. Richard, take us to the next question.
All right, last question we have in advance, and then we've got a couple in the chat that came in too. this one came from Sarah, who wrote, I'd like to make personalized certificates for all of my students to recognize their completion of 4th grade. Usually I write these by hand or stationery from our secretary. I saw something on Pinterest where a teacher had put pictures of the students on certificates. Do you have any idea how that might have been done? I didn't see it would have been nice if Sarah had sent me like the Pinterest itself, but I'm guessing that probably what the person did is, got pictures from, their school database. Like my school uses Infinite Campus, and every kid has, their headshot from the school photographer is in Infinite Campus. Go there, download the picture, and probably plaster that onto the certificate itself. Now, if you want to take it a step further, what I would use is a tool like Photo Scissors to crop out the background and just have the cutout of the student on the certificate, which I kind of think it's a cool idea. Now, with 25 kids, a typical 4th grade class, you get 25, maybe 30 kids at the most. You can probably do this all manually. I'd like to add in that if you are trying to make certificates in general, just as a general rule of thumb, you're trying to personalize certificates for, like, let's say 100 kids, or your entire freshman class, or whatever. It could be very labor intensive to do that manually. You could use a Google spreadsheet add-on like Autocrat, and that would generate, it takes a while to set up, but in the long run, it'll save you time. And it will automatically generate some customized certificates that way. There's also a Google Forms add-on called Certify'em that will do a similar thing. That's that.
Very, very cool stuff. In the space of removing a background, I added the remove.bg tool, which is a nice one out there. Yep. And let's actually jump into some of the questions that are in the chat. So can you embed an Adobe Spark video in Canvas? Richard, what do you think on that?
I have not tried. I've not used Canvas in a long time. So I don't know. I do not know if you can. I know you can link to it. I don't know how Canvas handles supporting third-party embeds. I'll tell you this, if you can put a YouTube video into Canvas, I'm sure you can put the Adobe Spark video in, because it's the same formatting.
May take a step or two. With that, one of the things that is worth knowing is that if you got a set of, let's say you've got a video that you've made out of slides, so it's a screencast video. So here we are in the next to last slide over here, something like that, right? This is the first slide in our Google Slide presentation today. In Google Slides, I'll go to File, Download as JPEG, and that'll grab that first slide as a JPEG. And when I put stuff out, on Twitter or something like that, I'll include that JPEG as I go. Now, what does that have to do with yours? Well, if you are including something in any learning management system that is a link, you might want to toss in some kind of screenshot of the video or a JPEG of the first slide or something like that to make it kind of all the better as you go. So there is that. And Richard, I think we got one more in the chat. Is that right?
One more question. What do you think about Google Classroom as a communication tool and main app for students to have work assigned for a school K-12, specifically grades K2? Any alternatives for little ones? So K2, I like Seesaw quite a bit. Big fan of Seesaw. Can certainly use Google Class. You could certainly use Google Classroom with K2s, but Seesaw was really designed for that. Initially, was designed for that K2, K3 audience. I like the way that parents can sign into Seesaw. Parents see a bit more than they do in Google Classroom. Like Google Classroom, parents can be added in and they get a summary statement. But with Seesaw, parents can actually see their child's work right there. So that's one of the things I really like about Seesaw for the K2 crowd. If I had to pick one or the other, for K2, I would definitely pick Seesaw over Google Classroom. Not to say Google Classroom couldn't work, but Seesaw works a little better.
Yeah, I have worked with schools all over the world, and so many of them are like, K-2, K-3, Seesaw, and then after that, whether it's Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, whatever it's going to be after that. But Seesaw seems to be the consistent favorite for the youngins. And I believe, though I'm not sure, this would need checking, but I believe that Seesaw is also a space where you can find a lot of things that other people have created. And a lot of the best tools out there are those where they say, we're going to set it up so that people who've created things make them available, and suddenly, many hands make light work, which is nice. So I really appreciate that in terms of, addition to the way their tool works.
Yeah, I'm putting a link in there right now to the Seesaw Activity Library.
Perfect. And that also, kind of clues you in that this is a company that's thinking, a little bit more broadly about the possibilities for education. So we want to thank you for being part of what we're doing today. The whole idea is that we end up with a set of fun ideas, pointing you in some directions that might be interesting. If you're kind of overwhelmed, oh my God, there was so much stuff. There's like so many links. Your job isn't to know everything. Your job is to zero in on that one or two things that we mentioned that make you go, ooh, that would be good for this kid. So if you find one thing that you think is going to be promising for one kid, you have done this right, especially if you've had some fun along the way as well. Our job is to care for these kids, care for their learning. And in order to do that well, we got to care for ourselves, right? We got to have some fun exploring new possibilities. What are you going to do this summer? Like yesterday in the last episode of, that sounds like it was the final, in yesterday's episode of Activities Across Grade Levels, Susan and I were joined by Donnie Piercy, and we had all of these kind of fun things to talk about with regard to how you can use your summer. And a lot of it comes down to just figuring out, hey, how can I connect with colleagues in a way that might be fun and interesting over the coming weeks, but also give me some really good ideas for what's possible coming up. So if you're interested in that, watch for the links page where we'll have links to that recording, the page of that recording as well. I run nextvista.org. It has a monthly newsletter that is chock full of good and fun stuff, and I hope you will give that a look. There is always an opportunity in it to earn a $5 Starbucks card. What? Earn it? Well, win it. Which means that you essentially went to the trouble probably of watching one or two 90-second videos and telling what you think. You mean that's how hard it was? That's how hard. You must have hundreds of people enter. You send it to thousands of people. I do send it to thousands of people. Do I have hundreds of people enter? Not by a long shot. Let's just say your math is good. So feel free to enter that if you are interested. Have a blog at Inspiring Improvement. I'm overdue getting something posted there, but feel free to give that a look, and hopefully the things that I have put there over time will allow you to see some new possibilities for your own work. Written some books that I hope you'll take a look at about making your teaching better, making your school, a place where they've ramped up academic possibilities, turn those into stories of success that you share with the community, and build everybody's confidence, students and teachers. Newest book came out in December, Technology, Teamwork, and Excellence from the National Catholic Education Association, which includes a lot of cool ideas for using tech to build your team as a leader. So feel free to give that a look, and stay in touch with me if you're like, hey, we're doing a little book study and I'd like for you to talk to my team. All right, what's that cost? Nothing, if that's all we're talking about. I mean, I'm happy to help. You bought some books, all good. Talk to us, Richard.
So what do I have coming up? This summer, I have the Practical EdTech Virtual Summer Camp. The June session is sold out. Sorry. But there are still seats in both of the July sessions. It's 10 hours of live webinars with me spread out over the course of 5 days. I also have the Practical EdTech Handbook, which is free. Just sign up for my newsletter and you'll get it emailed to you right away. And you can go to my YouTube channel for all manner of short tutorials with my head in an oval shape. Except that one has me in a square shape, a rectangle shape. Send me an email, richard@burn.media. Find me on Twitter or Google me and see what comes up. I will tell you one thing that comes up that is not true. I am not good at karate. The other thing I'm not good at is writing children's books. Those are two things come up when you Google me besides me.
So if you are thinking, how on earth do I stay in touch with these totally fun guys? Well, one way to do it is to email us. You got Richard's email a moment ago. Mine is rh@nextvista.org, and I answer every email I get eventually. You can also find out more about our webinars at tinyurl.com/rh-webinars20 or at nextvista.org. We've got that on the homepage as well. You'll get an email from me with all kinds of information about what we've been working with. And I hope that over the course of the little shindig we have done today, you've come up with some good ideas. If you are joining us as a part of the recording, stick around. We'll keep talking to you. But everybody else, we'll see you, I hope, next week.